AOC says so many people in this country hate women. Oh, geez. Even the guy at the party who pulls out a guitar is like, way to ruin the fun. Congressman Jamal Bowman says capitalism is slavery by another name. No, it's not. It's the thing that has given more people more prosperity and hope than any other system, flawed though it surely is.
Bill Maher is not backing down from talking about AOC, and honestly, he thinks he has a very good reason for it. He believes people are getting her ready to become the future leader of the Democratic Party. And if that really happens, he thinks the party could be in serious trouble.
But again, something like the free market is kind of synonymous with America. And if you don't like it, I don't know how you can say you love this country. You know who loves this country? You know who's not constantly complaining about what happened 200 years ago and who's not obsessed with seeing America through colored glasses and shaking off the stench of what irredeemable privileged souls we are? Immigrants.
A few years ago, Bill Maher was already warning Democrats about Kamala Harris. But according to him, the party ignored all the warning signs, stepped harder on the gas, and ended up crashing badly in the 2024 election. Now he's sounding the alarm all over again. This time, his target is AOC and what he sees as her super progressive fantasy version of America. And let's just say Bill Maher is not being gentle about it. He didn't show up with a tiny flashlight. He showed up ready to burn the whole argument down. So yeah, get comfortable because he's going all in.
AOC, Mandani are not Democrats. They'll be the first to tell you that. They're democratic socialists, and that's a very different thing, and I don't think people know that yet. I don't think people realize we already have a lot of socialism. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, unemployment insurance, food stamps, veterans benefits, Pell Grants, COVID-era payments, farm subsidies, disability payments, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, corporate bailouts, and the jobs program that is building weapons the Pentagon doesn't even want.
If you've been watching AOC recently, you probably noticed she's been standing very close to New York Mayor candidate Zohran Mamdani, and the message they're pushing keeps getting stronger and more intense. Not long ago, they shared a video telling all New York parents, no matter their immigration status, to sign their children up for the city's free pre-K and childcare programs. But the bigger issue, according to Bill Maher, is where all of this could lead. Mamdani's campaign is heavily focused on growing government-funded childcare programs, and now he's working together with Governor Hochul to expand those plans even more. Then you add in his support for abolishing ICE and the whole sanctuary city approach, and Bill Maher says the pattern becomes pretty obvious. He says he's not against helping children at all. His point is that America already has social programs meant to support people without turning the entire country into one giant government-managed project. In his opinion, if things go too far into socialism, New York could start feeling less like a thriving city and more like sitting in a never-ending DMV line with a flag hanging on the wall.
The DSA are radicals about this concept, and radical economic policy is always ineluctably married to radical social policy. Their platform, for example, calls for completely open borders. They're for what Biden was doing, but more. You think you're going to win an election on that? This just seems like more extremism at a time when Americans are begging both parties, please, could just one of you act normal?
Bill Maher also says that if people thought Biden was already too much, then AOC is on a completely different level. Put the two side by side, and the difference becomes obvious very quickly. Biden, even with all his problems and messy moments, still stays closer to the middle politically. Sure, he supported looser border policies at times, but there were still rules, limits, and at least some effort to keep things under control. Maybe not perfect control, but not total chaos either. According to Maher, AOC is something entirely different. She and many of her Democratic Socialist allies don't just tolerate open border conversations. They fully lean into them. Fewer restrictions, fewer limits, and much less hesitation. Maher argues that when Biden felt things were getting too extreme, he would at least tap the brakes a little. But he believes AOC seems much more comfortable removing the brakes completely. To him, This isn't just about policy disagreements anymore. He says it's about two very different ideas of what America is supposed to be.
Okay, I say the next time we have debates, the moderator needs to frame that question a little differently, as say something about America that you like, because honestly, I don't know why the people who are fighting for this country so hard even want it anymore.
And this is where Bill Maher says things start feeling strange. He questions why someone would fight so hard to lead a country while sounding angry at that same country all the time. Usually, when people truly love something, they don't spend every single week tearing it apart nonstop. With AOC, Maher feels like the criticism switch never turns off. It's always running in the background like a default setting. No matter what happens, whether Trump does something, policies succeed, jobs increase, the economy improves, or paychecks get better, there always seems to be a brand new reason to stay outraged. There are no real pauses and almost no moments where someone says, "Okay, that actually worked." Instead, it feels like constant pushback over and over again. And that's the difference Bill Maher keeps focusing on. He says criticizing bad decisions is completely normal because every politician deserves criticism sometimes. But there's a huge difference between trying to fix a system you still believe in and acting like the whole system is hopelessly broken forever. One approach looks like accountability. The other starts looking more like resentment dressed up in politics. And Maher believes voters eventually notice that feeling, even when nobody directly says it out loud.
A country that started out bad and will always be bad, founded on an unrelenting history of sucking, and unable to change. But we have changed a lot. Democrat Cori Bush tweeted, "This land is stolen land and black people still aren't free." And this was on the 4th of July. Really? Not that I give a shit about the 4th of July. I've never been a rah-rah guy. But I am a perspective guy. And that's what too much of the left has lost, perspective.
Bill Maher's bigger argument is about something he says becomes impossible to ignore once you notice it. He believes there's a growing trend on the left where America is described less like a flawed but functioning country and more like some collapsing dystopian nightmare. And sometimes, according to him, the language goes way too far. He points to a tweet from Cori Bush claiming that black Americans are not truly free in the United States. Maher argues that this idea falls apart when compared with reality. People can absolutely debate inequality, criticize problems in the justice system, and push for reforms. But saying black Americans are not free in a country where black Americans run major companies, serve in Congress, sit on the Supreme Court, and have even become president starts sounding less like criticism and more like an exaggerated cartoon version of reality. Maher says this is exactly the pattern he keeps noticing. Every problem becomes proof that the entire system is rotten. Every flaw turns into evidence that the country is collapsing. And when everything is framed as total disaster, people stop sounding like they want to improve America and start sounding like they believe it's beyond saving completely. At that point, Maher says it stops looking like simple disagreement and starts looking more like a political brand built around anger and contempt, whether people admit it or not.
72% of black people under 30 are optimistic about their future in America. Way more than white people the same age. And as far as the land goes, yes, I guess we could change the name of Captain America to Captain Stolen Land. But honestly, to all the people who start every public event now with one of those land acknowledgments where they say, "I'm standing on land that was stolen from the proud indigenous people of the Chumash tribe," I say either give it back or shut the
Bill Maher also takes another shot at what he sees as political performance and theater. His complaint is that a lot of modern progressive politics now feels carefully staged for attention. Big emotions, dramatic symbolism, powerful speeches, but not much that truly changes everyday life for regular people. One example he brings up is land acknowledgments. On the surface, these speeches are meant to show respect for indigenous history and recognize past wrongs. But Maher's criticism is pretty direct. Once the speech is over, he says almost nothing actually changes afterward. No major policy changes, no real restitution, no deeper structural reforms, just the performance. And then everyone goes back to business as usual. His point isn't that history doesn't matter, because he clearly thinks it does. His issue is whether symbolic gestures are starting to replace real action. If leaders publicly recognize harm but never follow up with concrete solutions, then the whole thing can begin to look more like branding than meaningful reform. That's really the center of Maher's frustration. He believes politics is becoming more focused on looking caring instead of actually fixing the underlying problems that continue staying exactly the same.
AOC says so many people in this country hate women. Oh, geez. Even the guy at the party who pulls out a guitar is like, way to ruin the fun. Congressman Jamal Bowman says capitalism is slavery by another name. No, it's not. It's the thing that has given more people more prosperity and hope than any other system, flawed though it surely is.
Here's the more direct version of Bill Maher's argument. He questions where the whole America hates women narrative is even coming from. Is it really just because Hillary Clinton lost in 2016 and Kamala Harris lost in 2024? Maher thinks that explanation falls apart pretty quickly under pressure. He argues that most voters are not sitting in voting booths doing complicated identity calculations. Most people are focused on normal everyday concerns like prices, jobs, border security, and stability. According to him, Hillary Clinton and Kamala Harris did not lose simply because they were women. They lost because enough voters, fairly or unfairly, didn't trust them with the job during those elections. Maher says that may sound uncomfortable, but it's also how elections normally work. Sometimes candidates win, and sometimes candidates lose. He believes calling every defeat misogyny turns complicated elections into overly simple storylines while completely ignoring the real reasons people voted the way they did. And his broader message is pretty simple. If every political loss automatically gets rewritten as oppression, then nobody actually learns from the mistakes that caused the loss in the first place. And without learning, nothing really improves.
But again, something like the free market is kind of synonymous with America. And if you don't like it, I don't know how you can say you love this country. You know who loves this country? You know who's not constantly complaining about what happened 200 years ago and who's not obsessed with seeing America through colored glasses, shaking off the stench of what irredeemable privileged souls we are? Immigrants.
Another thing that stands out in Bill Maher's criticism is how quickly the public mood seems to change depending on who is in power. He points out that when Biden was president, many of the same voices now describing America as oppressive and collapsing were not acting like the country was falling apart. Back then, the tone felt calmer and more hopeful. The country was still flawed, but people spoke as if things were improving overall. The economy was getting better, rights seemed stable, and progress was happening. But then leadership changes, and suddenly the language becomes much darker almost overnight. Same country, same institutions, same daily routines. Yet now America is described as broken, hostile, oppressive, and stuck in crisis. That's the inconsistency Bill Maher keeps pointing at. He's not saying criticism is automatically wrong. His issue is that the level of outrage sometimes seems connected less to reality itself and more to which political side currently holds power. And when the story changes that dramatically, that fast, Maher believes it raises fair questions about consistency. Because if everything only feels fine when your side wins and suddenly becomes disaster the moment your side loses, then it starts looking less like principle and more like political convenience.
Ask any of them why they came here, and they will tell you the same thing. Ron DeSantis put me on a plane. But they will also tell you that America, for all that's so shitty about it right now, is still the last best hope. And those people asking for our votes to take it over should remember that.
Bill Maher's final point really comes down to perspective. He says some of the loudest voices claiming America is completely broken are people who have spent their entire lives living inside the country. Meanwhile, many immigrants who have actually experienced life under very different systems often came to America because, compared to what they left behind, this country still offered far more opportunity. That doesn't mean America is perfect or free from criticism, because clearly it isn't. But Maher believes there's a major difference between pointing out flaws and describing the entire country as if it has no value at all. His argument is that real-life experience matters here. People who have never dealt with truly limited freedom are sometimes the ones making the strongest claims about oppression. At the same time, others who have experienced harsher conditions still choose America because they see it as a better option. Maher thinks that contrast says more than any long political speech ever could.
And if she had some deprogramming, she could be such a fantastic candidate.
What do you mean deprogramming?
Well, she just doesn't. She's never going to resonate with people outside of the bubble that she lives in the very, very far left.
So, in the end, Bill Maher's warning comes from someone who has been a lifelong liberal and doesn't see himself as abandoning the Democratic Party. Instead, he believes he's trying to pull the party back from what he views as a dangerous self-made cliff. His message is pretty simple. He says you can't convince people you're ready to lead country if your entire message makes it sound like the country is hopeless and beyond repair. In his opinion, voters are not won over by nonstop outrage, endless symbolism, and constant crisis language, while very little changes in everyday life. Maher believes AOC and many of her allies are pushing the Democratic Party toward a style of politics built heavily on emotion and storytelling, but lacking enough practical common sense and real-world grounding. And he thinks that's where the real danger begins. Whether Democrats listen to that warning or completely ignore it is another question entirely. But one thing is clear. Bill Maher believes he has seen this story play out before, and he already knows the ending won't be pretty. And with that, we wrap up today's video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more content like this. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.